The Harper residence stood like an immaculate postcard on Maplewood Drive. White pillared porch, manicured lawn edged with azalea bushes, and a slate driveway leading to a gleaming SUV. Inside, laughter drifted from the living room where 8-year-old Chloe Harper and her best friend, Mia, built Lego castles on a plush navy rug. Classical music murmured softly from hidden speakers, giving the scene an almost surreal perfection. From the archway, Sarah Harper watched them with a contented smile. 35, with chestnut hair swept into a loose chignon, she wore a tailored blouse and pressed slacks, her appearance as flawless as the home she kept. In her arms, a mug of chamomile tea steamed gently. Across from her, in a high-backed leather chair, sat her husband, David Harper, 41, sandy-haired, and exuding the calm confidence of a trusted architect. He leafed through blueprints for a local community center project. "Pass the connector piece, Mia," Chloe instructed, handing a tiny turret brick across the carpet. Mia complied, and Chloe placed the piece with the precision of a seamstress aligning stitches. "Thanks, Mrs. Harper," she said politely, glancing up. Sarah's chest warmed. "You're welcome, sweetie. Just let me know if you need anything else." David closed his plans and set them aside. "Everything going well for the shower this weekend, hon?" he asked, eyes on Sarah as though searching her face for a hidden truth. Sarah nodded, sipping her tea. "Yes, the brunch invitations went out this morning. I told the ladies we'll host at 10 sharp. Emily says she can't wait to show off her mural." She tapped her ring finger absent-mindedly, the diamond glinting in the soft light. "I'm so proud of how well things are shaping up." David rose and crossed to her, sliding an arm around her shoulders. "You're amazing at this," he murmured. "Every detail perfect, just like you." He pressed a kiss to her temple. At that moment, young laughter rang out in the hallway as Emily, Sarah's 10-year-old niece staying for the weekend, bounded into the room, her curly hair escaping its braid. "Aunt Sarah, show me how to do that swirl with the frosting," she begged, a wooden spoon in hand. Sarah chuckled and set her mug aside. "Of course, Em. Let's move to the kitchen." She rose gracefully, David following, as Chloe and Mia scampered along behind, eager to join in the baking. In the kitchen, the counters gleamed under recessed lights. A fresh batch of vanilla cupcakes waited on a rack, their domed tops begging for decoration. Sarah demonstrated a delicate spiral of buttercream, and Emily copied, tongue peeking out in concentration. David leaned against the island, watching the scene with a fond smile that crinkled the corners of his eyes. As frosting flecks dotted aprons and giggles filled the air, Sarah felt a swell of pride. This was her world. Loving husband, happy children by blood and by choice, a home filled with warmth and creativity. Outside the window, a red-tailed hawk soared across the clear blue sky, its cry echoing like a triumphant verse. Unseen by any of them, a black SUV idled at the end of the driveway, its tinted windows obscuring the figure within. The engine hummed quietly, and as the hawk departed, the SUV's driver watched the Harper home through mirrored glass, a small, unreadable smile playing on their lips. Inside, the Harper family remained blissfully unaware. Tragedy and betrayal lay dormant beyond the next horizon, waiting for the fault line to crack. For now, though, all was order and joy, and that fragile perfection would soon be tested in ways none of them could imagine. Monday morning arrived with a crisp chill that hinted at autumn's deepening hold. Sarah Harper's alarm chimed at 6:15 a.m., and she slid from bed to tend to breakfast preparations for Chloe and Emily. The girls descended the staircase in matching pajamas, yawning but eager for homemade blueberry pancakes and fresh fruit. David appeared in the doorway, tie askew and briefcase in hand. He greeted his family with a warm hug that brushed Sarah's back with reassurance. "Ready for your big meeting today," he said to her. "I'll pick up the catering order for Mrs. Baxter's luncheon on my way." Sarah nodded, flipping a pancake. "Thank you," she replied, masking the flutter in her stomach. The luncheon catered by her sister-in-law had become shorthand for familial obligation, a reminder of the tight bonds and unspoken rules that governed their social circle. Over breakfast, Chloe and Emily chattered about school projects and reading clubs. Sarah smiled and responded, but she caught herself glancing toward the front window again, half expecting to see that ominous SUV from Saturday's scene. Of course, it was gone. She shook off the thought. By 8 a.m., the girls were on the bus, and David kissed Sarah goodbye. He strode to the garage and loaded his briefcase into the car. As he closed the door, Sarah watched him from the kitchen window, her heart tightening at how easily their routines played out. The rest of the day passed in a familiar rhythm. School drop-off, office hours reviewing structural plans, phone calls with caterers and floral vendors. Yet beneath the normalcy, Sarah began to catch whispered snippets. At the grocery store checkout, the clerk hesitated, eyeing Sarah's wedding ring. "Pretty house you've got on Maplewood," she offered timidly. In the corridor at Sarah's interior design studio, two colleagues spoke in lowered tones. "Did you hear about Melissa and Greg?" one murmured. "Terrible scandal." On social media, a friend's post praised the Harper family's perfect facade, but a local gossip page hinted, everything isn't always as it seems behind those white columns. By midday, Sarah's phone buzzed with a text from her neighbor, "Carolyn, hope you don't mind, but I dropped by to return your gardening gloves. Also, word is your sister-in-law's husband has been flirting with someone else." Sarah paused, heart in her throat. Carolyn's tone was casual, but the subtext stung. That evening, Sarah mentioned the rumors over dinner. David's fork paused halfway to his mouth. He looked at her, eyes narrowing. What did Carolyn say exactly? Sarah repeated the gossip. His jaw clenched. "People love to talk," he replied curtly, setting down his utensils. "Ignore it." She studied him, the way his knuckles whitened, the sharp line of his jaw. "David, do you know anything about this?" He forced a laugh. "Not a thing. I'm loyal to you." He stood abruptly. "I need to finish revisions tonight." He strode from the dining room, leaving Sarah and the girls staring in surprise. Later, as Sarah washed dishes alone, she felt the first tremors of doubt. Whispers were circling, rumors too pointed to dismiss. And in the shadows beyond their lit windows, someone watched, waiting for those whispers to become truths. By the end of the week, Sarah Harper's unease had evolved into something more unsettling than idle gossip. The anonymous SUV never returned, but the whispers at the grocery store and the abrupt chill in David's eyes had cracked the veneer of their perfect life. Yet Sarah could not have anticipated how swiftly and dangerously her world would shift. It began with an unexpected knock on the door one late Friday afternoon. Sarah was sorting through invitations for her niece's upcoming birthday party when she answered to find a woman she barely recognized. Her sister, Abigail Abby Larson, 10 years younger, stylishly dressed in a fitted leather jacket and distressed jeans. Abby's pale blonde hair framed a face both beautiful and inscrutable, but her green eyes, all too familiar, held an intense sparkle. "Abby," Sarah murmured. "What a surprise. It's been too long." Abby interrupted with a practiced smile. She stepped inside, brushing off a light rain that had just begun. "I'm staying at a friend's nearby. Thought I'd surprise my big sister." Sarah led her through the foyer. "Come in. You catch me at an odd moment. I've had a strange week." Abby dropped her bag in the guest room and joined Sarah in the kitchen, where Chloe and Emily worked on school projects of the island. Abby knelt to greet them both, ruffling their hair. "Hey, princesses," she said warmly. "I've missed you." Later, after the girls scampered off to play and Sarah served tea, Abby sat across from her, stirring sugar cubes with unhurried grace. "Tell me everything," she coaxed. Sarah sighed, recounting the surprise deliveries, the chalked daisies, and the rumors of neighborhood gossip. Abby listened, head tilted, expression sympathetic yet guarded. "That's unnerving," she said. "But you'll handle it, Sarah. You always do." Over the course of the weekend, Abby's presence felt like balm. She unpacked family photos and rearranged living room cushions just as Sarah liked them. She took Chloe and Emily to the park in the afternoons, freeing Sarah to work on the birthday invitations distraction-free. At night, they shared glasses of wine by the fireplace, reminiscing about childhood road trips and late-night movies. It was on Sunday evening, after a late dinner of roast chicken and roasted root vegetables, that the line was crossed. Sarah had fetched Abby another glass of wine when she paused in the hallway, hearing soft laughter behind the study door. Inside, the low murmur was unfamiliar. Abby's throaty chuckle mingled with David's deep warmth. Sarah's blood chilled. She backed away, but a creak betrayed her presence. Inside the study, David and Abby turned. David's face lit with surprise that swiftly faded into hasty composure. "Sarah," he exclaimed, voice sharp. "This is Abby. She just arrived." Sarah swallowed, dropping the wine. "Afternoon," she managed, forcing a smile. Abby rose, brushing her hair back. "Hey sis," she said brightly. "David showed me his new plans for the community center. It's going to be amazing." David closed his laptop, reaching for Sarah's hand as if to bridge the moment. "We were just reviewing some architectural renderings." His gaze flicked to Abby and lingered. Later that night, Sarah lay in bed, unable to sleep. David returned from the basement study around midnight, pausing at the doorway. He peered in, then slipped beneath the sheets without a word. Sarah's heart pounded. She stared at the door, mind racing. David, her devoted husband, and Abby, her childlike sister, sharing laughter in her study. The implications spiraled, collaboration, or something far more illicit. The next morning, Sarah confronted Abby gently over coffee. "About last night in the study, were you reviewing the plans?" Abby's eyes shone with an odd intensity. "Yes, honestly," she said. "David's work is fascinating. He has such vision." She paused, leaning forward. "And I admire him." Sarah's chest tightened. Abby flushed, averting her gaze. "I shouldn't have said that." She stood abruptly. "I'm going for a walk." As Abby closed the door behind her, Sarah sank into her chair, the cup clattering on the saucer. She stared across the kitchen at David's empty mug, the seed of suspicion blooming into something darker. The sister she had welcomed, with open arms, harbored a silent yearning. And in the weeks to come, that forbidden spark would burn far too brightly, igniting a passion that would shatter everything Sarah held dear. The house lay silent under a moonless sky. All but one window was dark, save for the study on the first floor, where a single lamp glowed amber. Sarah, restless after discovering her sister's confession of admiration, lay awake in the master suite upstairs. Every creak of the old floorboards made her pulse quicken. Just past midnight, she heard hushed voices drifting upward, drawn by a blend of dread and resolve. She slid from the bed and tiptoed across the plush carpet to the staircase. Descending softly, she paused at the top of the stairwell, straining to hear. In the study, the door stood ajar. Through the sliver of light, she saw David leaning over the desk, finger tracing the edge of a blueprint. Abby stood close behind him, her breath warm against his ear. "I never knew," Abby murmured, voice low and urgent. "You're brilliant." David's reply was a soft exhale. "Thank you." Sarah's heart thundered. She stepped forward, the old floorboard groaning under her foot. In an instant, David snapped his head up, eyes wide with alarm. Abby spun toward the door, cheeks flushing in the lamplight. "Sarah," David exclaimed, as Abby stumbled back, fingers catching on the desk. A roll of tracing paper cascaded to the floor, unraveling like a white waterfall onto the rug. Sarah stood frozen, the beam of the lamp illuminating her sister's shock and her husband's panic. What is going on?" she demanded, voice wavering between fury and sorrow. Abby swallowed hard. "Sarah, David held up a hand. "Sarah, this isn't." But his denial offered no comfort. Sarah advanced into the room, the soft click of her slippers echoing in the tense hush. "Abby, you admitted you admired him." Her gaze swept from Abby's guilty face to the blueprints, architectural plans for a lakeside pavilion that David had kept hidden from his wife until now. "And you," she stopped, voice breaking. "You two are what?" Abby's voice trembled. "It's not what you think." Sarah's laugh was bitter. "No? Midnight study sessions? Confessions of admiration?" She seized one end of the fallen blueprint. "These are your designs?" she demanded, brandishing the paper like evidence. "You've planned this collaboration in secret without even telling me?" David stepped toward her. "I wanted to surprise you. This project is for our community, You know how much it means to me." Sarah's eyes burned. "But you didn't tell me." She turned on Abby. "And you? Why didn't you just say it as my sister? Why sneak behind my back?" Abby's eyes filled. I was lonely. You're always so perfect. You have everything." She drew in a breath as if bargaining for forgiveness. "I just wanted to feel valued." Sarah's chest tightened with a mix of rage and compassion. "By sleeping with my husband?" Abby flinched. "We didn't. It wasn't like that." But the air between them crackled with unspoken truths. Sarah's gaze flicked to David. "Is this true?" David swallowed. His voice came out as a whisper. "Abby and I spoke late. She's lonely. Her marriage ended badly. We connected." He knelt to gather the blueprints from the floor. But nothing happened. Sarah studied their faces, noting the lines of guilt shadowing Abby's cheeks and the tremble in David's jaw. "Did you touch her?" She pressed softly. David closed his eyes. "No." Sarah turned to Abby. "Did you try to, you know?" Abby shook her head, tears slipping free. "I wanted to, but he stopped me." A painful silence followed. The only sound was the whispered hum of the lamp. Sarah felt her world tilt on its axis. Her sister, her husband, the two people she loved most, united by a moment's weakness that threatened to consume them all. She took a steadying breath. "Go." Abby's shoulders crumpled. "I'm so sorry." She moved past David and out into the night, the study door closing softly behind her. Sarah faced David, her eyes glossy with unshed tears. "Lock the door," she said quietly. He complied, the bolt clicking home. Then she turned away, running gloved fingers through the folded blueprint before crumpling it in her hand. In that act, she felt something crack inside her. Trust, innocence, the perfect facade of their marriage. Tonight, temptation had become betrayal. And by morning's light, Sarah realized nothing would ever be the same. The following morning, Sarah awoke with a pounding headache and the bitter taste of betrayal lingering on her tongue. David's side of the bed was cold, the sheets as untouched as his affections, telling her he had not returned to their shared refuge. With trembling fingers, she reached for her phone. No messages, no missed calls, only the silent clock and her own racing thoughts. Downstairs, she found the remnants of last night's blueprint strewn across the kitchen island, still damp where tears had fallen. The once pristine surface was now scarred with coffee rings and fragments of torn paper. Sarah gathered the scraps, folding them into a tight bundle and slipping them into a robe pocket. She prepared breakfast for Chloe and Emily in mechanical silence, flipping pancakes, pouring milk, arranging fruit, while the girls chatted excitedly about their weekend plans. When Emily bounded over to hug her, Sarah managed a soft, "Good morning, sweetheart," though her eyes were distant. At 7:30 a.m., Chloe boarded her school bus, waving through the frosted window. Sarah watched until the bus turned the corner, then turned to find David pacing in the living room. He looked drawn, his coat hung on the stand, but he hadn't left. "I needed to think," he said, voice low. He ran a hand through his hair, as though trying to smooth away the night's shame. "I don't want to wake you." Sarah's jaw clenched. "You didn't think you should face me." David flinched. I'm sorry." Abby left early. I tried to stop her, but she slammed the door. He glanced at the front door, as if expecting her return. I went after her, but she was gone. Sarah nodded slowly. She needed a ride home. "I'll call her." David's eyes flicked up. "Did she say anything to you?" Sarah shook her head. "Not yet." She crossed to the door and, before stepping outside, turned back. "We need help." David's expression was pleading. "Couples therapy. We can fix this." Sarah held up her hand. "I need boundaries." She retrieved the folded blueprints from her pocket and laid them on the island, blotting them with a paper towel. "No more alone time with Abby, and no more hiding project from me." David exhaled. "Agreed." She continued. "Good morning texts. Check-in calls. I need to feel you're here." He nodded, swallowing hard. "I will." That afternoon, Sarah called Abby. Her voice was polite but measured as she arranged to pick her sister up at a cafe halfway between their homes. At the meeting, the two women sat across from each other over lattes. Abby's mascara was smudged, remorse etched on her face. "I'm sorry, Sarah," Abby began, voice small. I'll let my loneliness drive me into your marriage. I never wanted to hurt you." Sarah took a breath. "I get that, but you betrayed me." Tears fell as Abby nodded. "I'll go to therapy. I promise." Sarah studied her sister's bowed head. "I'll believe it when I see it." That evening, the Harpers gathered for a family ritual, movie night in the living room. Blankets were thrown over laps, and popcorn bowls passed around. Yet the warmth of laughter and shared smiles felt forced, as if each person were donning a mask. David sat closest to Sarah, hesitating before slipping his hand into hers. When she met his gaze, he offered a tentative smile, and she gave a small nod in return. As the opening credits rolled, Sarah realized that their perfect family, bricks and mortar, laughter and light, was now held together by fragile threads of contrition and new rules. Trust had been broken, but perhaps, with care and boundaries, the fractures could heal. Yet in the hush of the flickering screen, one thought lingered. Some cracks run deeper than they appear, and only time would tell if this facade could ever be truly mended. 2 weeks passed under a brutal truce, each day marked by Sarah's cautious vigilance and David's earnest attempts at transparency. He no longer lingered after dinner. He sent regular "thinking of you" texts, and every weekend project now included Sarah's full input. Yet, despite his efforts, an unspoken tension pulsed beneath their interactions, an ever-present reminder of Abby's intrusion. One Thursday evening, Sarah returned early from a client meeting, her heels clicking through the quiet foyer. She carried a portfolio of fabric swatches and paint samples under her arm, planning to review nursery colors with David before their date night. As she passed the study door, however, she noticed it cracked open with warm light spilling into the hallway. Heart nodding, she peered inside. David sat at his desk, but it wasn't alone. Abby's laptop rested next to his own, its screen glowing with a paused video. Sarah caught sight of the title, Community Center 3D Walkthrough, the project David had said he shelved until after her discovery of Abby's involvement. Below that, another window was open, a messaging app showing Abby's name and a series of exchange photos. Sarah's pulse thundered as she stepped inside. David looked up, eyes widening, while Abby, standing behind him, caught Sarah's gaze through the reflection in the screen. "Sarah," David stammered, rising. But Sarah's attention was fixed on Abby's laptop. She reached forward and clicked the chat window into focus. There it was, an unsent message from Abby, addressed to David. "I can't stop thinking about how your hand fell on my back tonight. I need you." Her breath caught in her throat. The message hadn't been delivered, but it lay typed, evidence of desire more explicit than confessions or fleeting compliments. Abby's cheeks flushed as she stepped forward, and David's face drained of color. Sarah closed the laptop with a sharp snap. "Explain this," she said, voice low and tremulous. Abby trembled. "Sarah, I'm so sorry." David ran a hand through his hair. "It's not what you think." Sarah cut him off, her tone steely. "Then tell me what it is. Are you two planning something behind my back again?" David swallowed. Abby was helping me finalize the design. The message Abby shook her head, tears brimming. "I typed it. I didn't send it, but I meant it." Sarah turned fully to David, eyes blazing. "You knew? You knew she was writing things like that, and you didn't stop her." David's voice cracked. "I thought I could protect us. I never wanted this to happen." Sarah's breath came fast. "So you let her fantasize about me while I was trusting you?" Abby sobbed, stepping back. "I'm so lost, Sarah." Sarah drew in a measured breath, pain warring with anger. "Both of you need help. I won't have my home become a battlefield for your desires." David stepped towards Sarah, voice earnest. "I love you. I will end this now, completely." Sarah's eyes flicked to Abby, then back to David. Actions, not words. She turned and walked out, leaving them in the study's glow. In the hallway, she pulled out her phone and dialed a number she had hoped never to call. "Detective Harper? It's Sarah Harper. We need to talk. This is urgent." As she spoke, her shoulders squared with resolve. The betrayal was no longer a whisper or a rumor. It was laid bare in text and unsent confessions. The sister she loved and the husband she trusted had violated her home's sanctity once too often. Now, The fault lines had fully revealed themselves, and Sarah knew she must take decisive action or risk letting obsession destroy them all. Detective Lisa Harper arrived at the Harper residence just before dawn, her police cruiser's lights off, determination in her stride. Sarah greeted her on the porch, eyes hollow with exhaustion. "Thank you for coming," Sarah said, guiding Lisa inside. "It's worse than you know." In the study, Sarah showed Lisa the evidence. Abby's unsent messages, David's faltering denials, and the hidden blueprints. "I thought they'd stopped," Sarah whispered. "But last night David sent Abby a text at 2:17 a.m. "Come over, I need you." And look what I found this morning." She held up a fresh daisy petal, pressed between 2 pages of her planner. Detective Harper examined the petal. He's recreating the pattern, just like infestation stalkers who circle their targets. This isn't just an affair. It's an obsession. Sarah's lip quivered. "I discovered the message on Abby's laptop, but David swears it's gone too far for him. He says he loves me, but I don't know who he really is anymore." Lisa nodded. "We need to track digital footprints. I'll get warrants for phone records, app metadata, anything that shows Abby and David's contacts. And we'll review the house cameras." As they spoke, a soft chime echoed from the hallway. Sarah froze. Lisa's hand went to her holster. "What was that?" Sarah opened the door to find Chloe, wide-eyed. "Mom, someone left this at the door." She held out a small package tied with ribbon. Sarah untied the bow. Inside lay a single white rose and a note in Abby's handwriting. "I can't bear this distance. I need you. Meet me at the pavilion." Midnight. Sarah's breath caught. "This afternoon, detective." And that pavilion is exactly where David wanted to build the structure, on the lake's edge. Lisa's eyes hardened. He's luring her. Then what? Sarah shook her head. "I don't know, but it won't end with words." That night, Detective Harper stationed officers discreetly near the empty pavilion as shadows gathered under skeletal oaks. Sarah huddled in a patrol car, Chloe safe with her aunt next door, the radio crackling softly with updates. At exactly midnight, a figure emerged from the tree lean. Abby, trembling, clutching her coat. A second silhouette replied. David, coat collar turned up, hands in pockets. Abby stepped forward, then hesitated. David reached out. She placed a rose in his palm. Sarah's stomach twisted. She watched through binoculars as David drew Abby close. For a moment, their heads bent together as if sharing a secret. Then David's hand snapped out. Abby's gasp cut short. She stumbled backward, fingers brushing her throat. Detective Harper's whispered command cracked through the night. "Hold your fire. Wait for the knife." Sarah barely had time to absorb the metallic glint, a small blade in David's hand, before Abby crumpled beside the pavilion stone bench. She fell against the cool surface, blood blossoming through her shirt. David stepped back, eyes frantic as he dropped the knife. He turned, spotting Sarah's car headlights, then the blue and red flashes behind him. Abby's last breath rattled in the stillness as officers swarmed. Detective Harper rushed to Sarah's side. "Stay here," she ordered, then sprinted toward the pavilion. Sarah pressed, trembling fingers against her lips, tears blurring the scope. The man she had vowed to trust, and the sister she had hoped to forgive, lay shattered by the force of a forbidden obsession. Under the oak's skeletal branches, the perfect family portrait had cracked wide open, revealing the lethal gravity of love gone wrong. The flash of red and blue lights cast long shadows across the pavilion stone bench, where Abby lay motionless in a growing pool of blood. The night air was punctuated by whispered commands and the soft thud of officers taking position around the lake's edge. Sarah Harper stumbled from the patrol car, stumbling forward until Detective Harper caught her arm. "It's going to be okay," Detective Harper murmured as she guided Sarah to a safe distance. "We need you out of the line of fire." Through the glare, Sarah watched David's hands rise and surrender as officers cuffed him. He knelt beside Abby's body, tears streaking down his face, his voice breaking in anguished sobs. Abby, please wake up." Nearby, paramedics covered Abby with a foil blanket and assessed her wounds. 2 deep punctures to the torso, one at her side and another at her back, before loading her into the ambulance. Sarah felt her world tilt as the door shut, the siren's wail swallowed by the darkness. Detective Harper approached Sarah, eyes grave. "She's alive, but critical. You're free to go to the hospital if you wish." Sarah nodded numbly, legs weak. She allowed an officer to escort her back to the car, where she sank into the seat, mind racing through every moment leading to this point. Inside the pavilion, forensic teams photographed the scene. The fallen rose, the knife snagged on a bench arm, David's footprints in the dew-slick grass. Officers collected evidence, gloved hands dusting the blade for prints, bagging Sarah's blueprint scraps found near the edge of the clearing. By 2:30 a.m., the pavilion was sealed off. Detective Harper emerged, removing her gloves. She caught Sarah's eye and offered a silent nod that spoke worlds. The man Sarah loved had crossed the line, and the sister she'd sheltered now lay fighting for her life. In the ambulance bay, Abby's gurney slid into the emergency entrance. Sarah rushed after it, bursting into the fluorescent glare of the trauma ward. Doctors and nurses moved like fractals of urgency, and Sarah's pleas for Abby drew only hurried reassurances that she's stable. We're doing everything we can. At dawn, Sarah sat in the waiting room, stained by tears and exhaustion, while Detective Harper reviewed the arrest report. "David's confessed," she said. "He admits he lured Abby here." Sarah pressed her palms to her eyes. "Why didn't I see it sooner?" Harper sat beside her. "Obsession can blind us. Love can too. You're not to blame." Sarah exhaled shakily, realizing that the night's horror would ripple through every future chapter of her life. The perfect family had shattered under the weight of a forbidden spark, and now only truth and justice could begin to heal the wounds left in its wake. The sky over Maplewood Drive wore a bleak, leaden hue the morning after the pavilion shooting. Dew clung to the grass in crystalline beads, as if nature itself mourned the violence that had ruptured this once tranquil suburb. Sarah Harper stood at the edge of the crime scene tape in her robe, exhaustion etched into her pale face. Beside her, Detective Lisa Harper, no relation, but a steadfast ally, reviewed notes on her tablet, eyes scanning each entry with clinical precision. "We have Abby's statement in forensics," Lisa said quietly, not looking up. Despite her critical injuries, she was conscious long enough to say David ambushed her. She tapped the screen. "We also recovered his phone. There are time-stamped texts. 'I need you tonight. Don't back out.' And a final message at 11:58 p.m. 'Meet me where it all began.' That location matched the abandoned boathouse on the lake, where you and David had your first date." Sarah's lips trembled under her mask of composure. He lured her to two sentimental locations. First the pavilion, then the boathouse. Lisa nodded. An obsessive pattern. Rituals of intimacy turned predatory. "I want to visit the boathouse before the evidence degrades." She slipped on gloves and pulled back the tape. "Stay close." They crossed the lawn to the hidden service road leading to the old dock. The boathouse, its weathered boards stained by decades of sun and spray, sat half submerged in the reeds. Lisa crouched to inspect the mud by the rotting steps. "Look here," she said, pointing to a trail of footprints. One set abruptly stopping at the threshold, another continuing inside. David entered alone, but Abby's prints indicate she resisted entry. Inside the boathouse, dust motes danced in Lisa's flashlight beam. The broken plank floor echoed every creak underfoot. On a rafter beam hung pink ribbon, Abby's long hair tie, caught on a splinter. Lisa bagged it, noting the location. He wasn't just luring her. He was marking territory. Outside, Sarah's thoughts drifted to the first time she and David had stood on this dock, enveloped in summer warmth and whispered promises. Now, the same place reeked of blood and betrayal. She closed her eyes, drawing a shuddering breath, as Lisa collected shards of shattered glass. A wine bottle, the label half ripped, bearing the Harper family crest. "They drank here before," Sarah whispered. "He used our memories against her." Lisa looked up, determination in her gaze. "This is enough to corroborate Abby's statement and Abby's injuries. We'll submit everything for homicide charges." Back at the station, The precinct buzzed with the urgency of a high-profile case. A whiteboard diagrammed the timeline. 10:15 p.m. David leaves home under guise of late-night work. 11 p.m. He texts Abby, "Meet me at the pavilion." 11:10 p.m. Pavilion stabbing captured by park camera. 11:58 p.m. Final text, boathouse. 12:10 a.m. Amos McBride, jogger, discovers David at pavilion, calls 911. 12:30 a.m. Abby admitted to trauma unit, statement logged. 1:15 a.m. Search teams secure boathouse, evidence recovered. Detective Harper assembled her team. "We have probable cause for first-degree attempted murder," she announced. David Harper will face a grand jury tomorrow. Prepare witness statements. Nurses, the jogger Amos, even the Harper's neighbors who reported noises. We need airtight testimony. Throughout the day, Sarah visited Abby's hospital bedside. Abby lay pale and frail, chest heaving with every shallow breath, monitors beeping softly. When Sarah approached, Abby's eyes fluttered open. "Sarah," she whispered, voice raspy. "I'm sorry." Sarah's throat tightened. She grasped Abby's hand gently. "I know," she said, voice thick. "Just get better. The truth will set you free." Abby managed a tearful nod before drifting back to sleep. Sarah stepped away to confer with Detective Harper in the hallway. "She wants justice," Sarah said, "not revenge." Lisa placed a hand on her shoulder. "This will give her that and protect others." David's pattern suggests he could have targeted more victims. That evening, at the grand jury hearing, the room was packed. Prosecutor Helen Cho presented the meticulously documented evidence. Abby's medical records, David's text logs, forensic findings from pavilion and boathouse, and surveillance footage. Cho's closing statement was measured yet powerful. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is not a case of a heated argument gone too far. It is a calculated betrayal. Mr. Harper orchestrated a midnight lure, drove his sister-in-law to isolated locations, and stabbed her with intent to kill. Twice. The law demands that such intentional acts against vulnerable victims, especially at the behest of obsession, be met with the full measure of justice." The grand jurors filed from the room in solemn procession, and the foreman returned. "We have a true bill," he announced. Outside, Sarah exhaled, relief flooding her. Justice would proceed, Abby's voice would be heard, and the obsessive terror that had infected her family could be contained. Detective Harper offered Sarah a tight smile, one step closer to closure. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Sarah realized that the path ahead, trial, sentencing, healing, would be arduous. Yet, for the first time since that dark night, she felt a glimmer of hope. The pursuit of truth, relentless and unwavering, could reclaim the shattered pieces of her perfect family and bind them with a stronger thread of justice. The courtroom's hush was swallowed only by the scrape of chairs and the muted ticking of the wall clock. At the defense table, David Harper sat with his head bowed, hands clasped around the blue jail-issue jumpsuit he wore. Across from him, his attorney offered a few whispered words of comfort, though neither man seemed fully present. Sarah Harper entered the gallery moments later, flanked by Chloe on one side and Emily on the other. Both girls wore white dresses, simple, innocent, symbols of the family innocence David had shattered. Sarah's posture was straight, her expression composed, but behind her eyes lay the echoes of a fractured sisterhood and a husband's betrayal. At 9:15 a.m., Judge Mary Ann Caldwell called the court to order. Prosecutor Helen Cho rose first, her voice resonant with conviction as she reviewed the litany of evidence uncovered over the past weeks. The defendant, David Harper, lured his sister-in-law, Abigail Larson, to two secluded locations under false pretenses, then stabbed her with the intent to kill. His actions demonstrate premeditation. A text at 11 p.m. inviting her out, the timing of the attack, and a selection of sites with emotional significance. Ms. Larson survived by sheer force of will and immediate medical intervention. Nevertheless, the law requires accountability for such calculated violence. Cho paused, scanning the faces of family members in the gallery. "We seek a conviction of attempted first-degree murder, to reflect the gravity of this betrayal and a sentence that ensures both punishment and protection for the community. The defense followed, painting a portrait of a remorseful man consumed by jealousy and fear, not malice. David's attorney argued for voluntary manslaughter, citing a temporary lapse in judgment fueled by obsession and emotional turmoil. Judge Caldwell allowed both arguments to rest before delivering her charge to the jury. You must consider whether Mr. Harper's intent rose to the level of premeditation, or whether his actions were the result of a heat of passion reaction. The law distinguishes these states of mind carefully. After mere hours of deliberation, the jury returned. The foreperson rose with a solemn face. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of attempted first-degree murder. A collective intake of breath swept the courtroom. David's shoulders sagged as the verdict echoed through the chamber. Sarah felt tears prick her eyes, but she remained standing, holding both girls' hands firmly. At sentencing 2 weeks later, the courtroom overflowed with community members, reporters, and supporters of both Abby and Sarah. Abigail Larson, fully recovered but carrying the physical and emotional scars of that night, sat front and center, flanked by her own 2 children, now aged 11 and 9, widely-eyed and clutching her hand. Judge Caldwell spoke with measured gravity. David Harper, your betrayal of family trust, committing violence against the sister of your spouse in places once sacred to your marriage, demands a sentence reflective of both retribution and rehabilitation. I hereby sentence you to 20 years imprisonment, with eligibility for parole after 15, followed by 10 years of supervised release. May you use this time to confront the darkness of your actions and emerge, if possible, a man capable of remorse and change. As David was led away, Abby rose and embraced Sarah in the gallery. Their tearful hug spoke of forgiveness born only from shared suffering, and the resolute bond of 2 women who refused to be victims. Chloe and Emily stood nearby, hugging their mother's legs, eyes brimming with questions they could not yet articulate. Months later, rebuilding lives. Spring's first thaw found Sarah and Abby planting roses in the Harper backyard, a small memorial to the sisterhood nearly lost. Emily and Chloe took turns watering the new blooms, giggling as dirt smudged their cheeks. Sarah had returned to her design studio, her work now infused with depth and compassion born of her ordeal. She led community workshops on creating safe, nurturing homes, and volunteered with local support groups for survivors of family violence. Abby, strengthened by her survival and Sarah's unwavering support, enrolled in graduate school to study counseling, determined to guide others through trauma's aftermath. Her 2 children thrived under the protective embrace of both grandmothers, their laughter once again filling family gatherings. On a warm June evening, Sarah hosted a small celebration under the newly planted rose trellis. Neighbors, friends, and therapists gathered to honor Abby's recovery and to mark the Harper family's first anniversary free from fear. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the petals of the roses glowed like embers, symbols of beauty and resilience emerging from sorrow. Detective Lisa Harper, invited as Sarah's guest of honor, raised a toast to truth that prevails, to justice that heals, and to families who reclaim hope from the ashes. Glasses clinked softly, and Sarah looked around at the faces shining in lantern light. The perfect family they once were had fractured, but from those fractures, something stronger and more authentic had grown. And as they shared laughter and stories beneath the starry sky, Sarah realized that while the past could never be undone, their future, rooted in truth, love, and unwavering solidarity, was a new chapter waiting to be written.